March Madness is almost over, Easter is around the corner, and we're here to help you tackle it all. Welcome to Off Duty, everyone. I'm Kelsey Hubbard. Well, the big NCAA championship game is tonight. We hope you win your office pool, and here for a quick preview of the big game is our very own Paul Vigna.
The national championship game, Kansas, Kentucky. This is a marquee matchup, isn't it, JR?
All that bracket talk the last couple of weeks comes down to one game.
Right.
And you're right about these two teams, the winningest programs in college basketball history. These are two of the most storied programs in all the land. I mean, there is a huge, rich history between these teams and a huge alumni base also. And this is a really good, very good matchup, and the committee really got it right. Kentucky being the overall #1, and Kansas being a strong number 2.
And Kentucky, I mean, both these teams played their Final Four games over the weekend, and Kentucky just looked like a machine.
Each of these teams, in a sense, looked death in the face.
Yeah,
they each overcame a 13-point deficit. So not only did they see...
Well, Kentucky didn't overcome a 13. They withstood Louisville coming back.
Yes, yeah,
right. That was what they took on.
So not only did these teams see what they have to do to win the game, but the other team saw some flaws, and saw this is how you kind of wear this team down, and this is, if we can get them down to be in a point deficit, how can we keep them sort of beaten down in a bit. This is going to be a track meet tonight. This is going to be up and down the floor. These teams do very well scoring and transition, and they both have their superstars on either side. And it's really going to come down to, in my opinion, intangibles, such as things like foul trouble and free throws and turnovers. And the idea that for Kentucky, as powerful as they are, if Kansas can block out their key players in the post and to keep them from scoring inside, that'll be one of the keys to keep Kentucky from winning this game. And it's going to be very difficult.
I thought it was very interesting that Kentucky, they took Louisville's best shot in that second half. And I think that's what's interesting about Kentucky, is that they finally had somebody who really stood up and punched them in the mouth, and they withstood it. Whereas Kansas had a scrape, they had a struggle. They got their victory over Ohio State, but these two teams, I think, are coming from different places, really, given what they did in the Final Four.
Well, Kansas also struggled against North Carolina to the last few minutes in the Final 8 game, and so Kansas has had to eke out these victories, and so that could come back to haunt them in the sense that they have a very difficult time sort of collecting insurance as the game goes along and packing that away and building up a 10 or 11 point lead. If they can get players on Kentucky in foul trouble, then those players, for example, let's say Anthony Davis, may have to sit on the bench for a duration of the game.
That would be
I doubt
gigantic.
That's going to happen, but it does happen. I mean, you'll see a lot of nerves come out also.
This is also, besides a marquee matchup of these programs and these teams, this is a marquee coaching matchup, isn't it? I mean, this is Bill Self and John Calipari back in the national championship game. 4 years ago, everybody knows Bill Self bested Calipari. Does that get reversed this time?
I think so.
Yeah.
I would be very surprised if Kentucky does not win this game. These players, as young as they are so conditioned for this sort of game, and just the style of play is so strong, and they have proven to be able to beat various styles of play and various styles of offense and defense thrown at them during the year, that Kansas would have to play a perfect game and then some, and have to rely on miscues by Kentucky in order for the Jayhawks to win.
Last week, the entire nation was buzzing about the enormous Mega Millions jackpot. Anyone lucky enough to win, of course, will need some smart financial planning, and part of managing money is teaching your children the value of a dollar. Robert Frank is back with Money Talks.
If you talk to many of today's wealthy, the biggest challenge and frankly the biggest fear that they have is how to educate their kids about money and really how to raise functional, normal kids with good work ethics when these kids have really had everything they want in life handed to them. And so, you know, the categories really relate to earning, saving, and investing, which aren't all that different from regular kids, but with wealthy kids, you have to take it to another level. So with earning, it's very important, I think, for wealthy kids to have some kind of regular job when they're young. They've been buying designer clothes, the parents gave them a Mercedes for the 16th birthday, and it's especially important for wealthy kids to go out in the workforce and understand what it takes to earn a dollar. In addition to that, it's very important for them to understand savings. I was once at a retreat with very wealthy kids who were learning about money, And many of them, they were in their 20s, they didn't realize exactly how a credit card worked. In other words, somebody ultimately had to pay the credit card bill. They had never paid a credit card bill. So it's very important for them to understand the importance of savings. And what wealthy families can do is give their kids very specific savings targets. Say, look, if you want this vacation, if you want this specific piece of clothing, even though we've bought you these things in the past, for this one thing, we're gonna ask you to save for it. And just understand what it takes to save money. I think the most important thing for wealthy kids is investing. Because look, these are kids who are probably gonna inherit large amounts of money. And they're going to need to understand investing, more so than the average kid that will probably just, you know, like most of us, just put things in a retirement account. We buy the usual mix of stocks and bonds. These are kids that are going to have to be more sophisticated at a younger age with investing. So it's important, really important for parents to start reading them the Wall Street Journal, for instance, at a young age, giving them a sense of how markets work, what a stock is, what a bond is, and really bring the kids in your own investing as a family. Say, look, here's where our money is, here's why, here's what happened over the last year, here's why, and really bring your kids into the family's investment decisions, because eventually they will be the decision makers in the family when it comes to their wealth. So it's really about earning and saving and investing.
He's a soul music legend, but his new album has a country flavor. Lionel Richie sat down with our own Lee Hawkins to discuss his music, his extensive career, and his friends Whitney Houston and Michael Jackson.
You have this new project, and they're based on a lot of the standards that you've written over the years, with duets with some of the most prominent country singers, Kenny Rogers, Willie Nelson. What inspired that project?
Well, I got to tell you something. First of all, I'm laughing now when you use the word standards, right? All right, so let me tell you, if I had to retitle this album, it would be called All the Songs They Told Me Would Ruin My Career.
Really?
So it's funny, here I am now 30 years later, and everyone's going, do you have, talk about those standards and what it, the answer is, it was really just probably triumphed over complete stupidity of not knowing that there were categories. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that there was R&B and black folks had to stay in R&B, and I didn't know that rock and roll was called, oh, that's the white section. You know, I didn't know that.
Right.
Because when I started out in the business, radio was country. I was born and raised in Alabama. And so there weren't R&B and pop, it was just Patsy Cline, you know.
And was it that your songs were just strongly written songs? They were strongly structured?
Well, see, I thought I was competing against Marvin Gaye, Billy Joel, Paul McCartney, Stevie Wonder. I thought I was going after that group. Okay. I didn't know that there was a category that came with the group. So with me, I just kind of got in there, and when I first went into radio, approached radio, I remember hearing phrases like, well, Just to Be Close to You is a great R&B song, but we can't put it on pop because it's too black. Oh. And then I bring back Easy Like Sunday Morning. Oh my God, Lionel, it's a great song, pop, but it's too white. We can't play it on R&B.
But so now a lot of these songs are permeating through in the country genre. You've written a lot of songs for Kenny Rogers.
Perfect.
What was it about those songs that made them resonate?
The story. I always tell people every day, there's really no difference between Take This Job and Shove It and Oh Baby Don't Leave Me. You know, country and R&B are real songs. When I say that, it becomes a story of someone's life, of an experience.
Two people that you touched deeply, younger people, Michael Jackson and Whitney Houston.
Yeah.
How did that affect you?
It affected me deeply. Honestly, it's a reminder to me, always, that as glamorous as this business is, it's also treacherous. So when you start thinking about Michael Jackson and what he did, he was the king of the world. And then all of a sudden it fell on his shoulders. And it takes one little incident to throw you off, in the case of his hair burning or whatever the case, or just turning 40. It doesn't take much, you know. And Whitney, you know, you just trip and fall one time, you make one mistake in public, and it becomes a series of trips, and you're falling and you keep falling, and you realize, wow, are you going to get up? And the answer is you can't get up. I know when we all started out, Michael and I used to talk about it. We'll never let that happen to us. We'll never let drugs and alcohol happen to us, you know. But then again, it becomes just one day something happens and you didn't plan on doing that and just flipped on you. And hopefully you have some people around you that will pull you out of it for a moment and save you. I must be honest with you, I've got a wonderful group of people around me that in case anything goes wrong, their job is to do one thing. First of all, they're friends. Secondly, their job is, I don't care what it is, get me out of it. You know, pull me out of it, and I don't care what I'm supposed to do, get me away from it. When you have those kind of people in your camp, you're going to survive a little bit longer, but the pressure is enormous. And I'm so sorry for both of them, because the talent is not what was suffering. It was just the physical, it was the mental.
You can watch the full interview with Lionel Richie on the WSJ YouTube channel. You don't want to miss it. Easter is this weekend. That means family, friends, chocolate, and maybe a little entertaining. I recently sat down with Chef Alfred Portale for some tips on a delicious Easter meal. Nothing symbolizes an Easter dinner more than lamb. I'm headed to Gotham Bar and Grill in New York City, where executive chef Alfred Portale will show us his Easter menu and how to properly cook lamb as a main dish. How do you suggest somebody goes about planning their menu?
Well, you know, for me, I'm kind of a traditionalist, and I associate Easter with certain foods and certain traditions that I grew up in with in my family. And for me, it's all about lamb. And in today's menu, it's actually going to be a stuffed loin of lamb. It's stuffed with a roast garlic puree with fresh mint, thyme, and rosemary. That is what makes this recipe so special. But we do, you know, lamb, garlic, rosemary, I mean, they're inseparable. So in this recipe, we take whole heads of garlic, just cut the top off, wrap them, and put them in some heavy-duty foil, tin foil, drizzle them with a bit of olive oil and season them, and put it into an oven, and we're gonna low oven and just slowly roast that until the garlic is mellow and soft, and we can simply squeeze out the soft garlic cloves and make a paste. To that paste, I'm going to finely chop rosemary, fresh thyme, a little bit of parsley, and some fresh mint. And don't be afraid to use too much of this. This is going to really provide a tremendous flavor. And then we put the other loin on top and sandwich it in, so when we slice it, we'll have the two meat with a nice, like, green center. This lamb is tied, and tying accomplishes a couple of things. When you tie a piece of meat, generally you're doing it so that you have an even thickness, and therefore you have even cooking. We're going to first sear this on all sides in a very hot pan until it's nice and brown. And then we'll stick it into like a 375, 400-degree oven and slowly roast it.
And I know you also serve some of those vegetables that you were telling us about that are so in season right now.
Well,
tell us what vegetables you chose.
Well, we are, you know, celebrating spring, so I have all the icons of spring vegetables. The spring garlic, spring onions, ramps, which are the lovely wild leeks. They're very tender. You know, again, just whatever strikes your fancy, but this represents really a very colorful assemblage of vegetables. What I do with the vegetables is I cook them all individually first in boiling salty water, just until they're tender. You lift them out and plunge them into ice water. That accomplishes two things. It stops the cooking and it sets their pretty green color. Later you drain them, and just when you're ready to serve, we'll heat them up in a little bit of butter and extra virgin olive oil, and I think I have some Meyer lemons that I'll squeeze a little bit of lemon juice and a little bit of lemon zest to kind of help lift the flavors. Meyer lemon has a much more gentle acidity. It's a little bit more fragrant and not as harsh.
Oh wow! Look at this. All right, can we dig in?
Yes.
Okay. I can't wait. This looks amazing. You can see all that nice garlic paste that you put in the center.
Yummy.
So delicious. All right, well, thank you for the great advice.
Sure.
Alfred Portale, happy Easter to you.
Thank you.
Cheers. Have you ever been to a concert where the music is being played, but musicians nowhere to be found? At the Juilliard School in New York, it's not as odd as it sounds. Here's a story about one more way the internet is changing music.
This performance at Juilliard features a composition for 3 pianos, and it's played with one lonely pianist on the stage.
When you walk into our hall, you'll see 3 pianos on stage, a Juilliard student sitting in the center piano, and no one on the piano at the left or the piano at the right. Those instruments are being played by people far away.
The performer on the left, John Kim, is playing live in California, and his keystrokes on his piano are being transmitted via the internet with a short delay to a piano in New York, over 2,500 miles away. The other performer, Luna Inaba, is playing live in Japan, and her keystrokes are being replicated on the piano to the right.
It looks a little bit like you're in a seance, because you hear this incredible music emerging out of these glorious instruments, except you don't see the people in the room that are making that music.
To make it easier for concert goers, a live video feed of the performers in Japan and California is projected on the wall. But it took a minute for Allegra Chapman, the performer in New York, to get used to this unusual setup.
I've never performed that way before, but it's a very exciting way of approaching things, to think that we're in completely different parts of the world and we can still play together, and in fact their sounds can be created in the space that the audience is sitting in with this disc clavier technology. That is really wild for me. And once I get going, it doesn't feel abnormal, or I just feel like I'm playing with them, which is really amazing.
This concert at New York's Juilliard Music School challenges the fundamentals of music. For concerts, musicians always had to be physically in attendance. This technology might be able to change that. Here's how it works.
This is an acoustic piano, fully functioning acoustic piano, so you can play exactly the same way you would play any acoustic pianos. But the difference is, firstly, you can record yourself. I play something with all the key movements, and I also use pedals. So hopefully it captured it.
For this performance in New York, 2 identical pianos are connected for the 2 remote performers. The piano in California records John Kim playing and sends the data to the piano in New York, which plays it back within seconds. So will this technology revolutionize music concerts?
I don't think this is going to be replacing traditional concert experience, but it does provide artists with new ways of collaborating and new ways of working.
This concert piano is not cheap. It costs $230,000. But in the future, it would give pianists a chance to perform live on 5 continents. The other venues just need a disc clavier.
That's it for Off Duty. I'm Kelsey Hubbard. Thanks for watching. Wendy will be back tomorrow. Click above to subscribe and have a great day.